And we're live. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America once again, a little bit earlier today, but we got always, like usual, lots to talk about. And I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Brian McNicoll.
Good morning. Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, and dog-faced pony soldiers. And we realize that a lot of you are not listening today because you're downtown in Freedom Plaza with about 2 million fellow patriots.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's. Yeah, but there's so many things that intertwine with each other. We're going to talk about them all today. We'll get to that in a minute or a few minutes. First of all, let's talk about this Georgia Senate runoff. Obviously, the headline news of the day. We have, as far as I know, I think pretty much every network has declared Warnock the winner. I don't think that Loeffler, at least as early this morning, Loeffler had not conceded.
She's not conceded. The last I heard, she was about 40,000 votes behind. There's, the same kind of stuff that happened on November 3rd, too. There's a lot of irregularity going on, suspicious activity, vote counts stopped at suspicious times and so forth. So she may be waiting to see how some of that shakes out. The other race appears to be too close to call, from my understanding.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the margin is very slim. I think when I checked a couple hours ago, it was, what was it? 20,000, 15,000 votes, I think, 15 or 16,000 votes difference, and Ossoff with a very small lead. Now, that margin.
The last I looked, it was like 1,500.
Oh, it got down. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't checked for like the last couple hours, and obviously more votes continue to come in. So if it gets that close, boy, I tell you, this is going to be a barn burner here.
Yeah.
In terms of that, to be honest, I'm actually surprised that we got as many votes counted as we did on this. In one sense, because of everything that happened on election day. On the other hand, I guess. It probably should have been faster because we're only talking about two races here, and it was a pretty simple ballot. So even what was it, 500,000 or more mail-in ballots, they can't be counted until the poll closed. But I guess with a shorter ballot, they could be counted a lot quicker. So we're getting the results in a lot of cases a lot sooner than a lot of the other pundits expected it to be. So the Democrats have won at least one race. And they're on the verge of potentially winning the second race. We'll see. And if they do win the second race, they will then have a 50-50 split in the Senate, which effectively gives control to the Democrats because Kamala Harris will be able to vote as the tiebreaker in that.
Right, she takes office, which
right. Well,
we can get an update on today.
That's area more discussion.
It's really crazy. Who knows?
Yeah, but I want to ask you something now because I meant to look it up. And I can't remember what happened. I think we've had these 50-50 splits before here and there. Kamala Harris would then, the vice president would then cast a tie-breaking vote. What happens on the Senate side in terms of leadership? Are they then co-leaders? McConnell?
No, they control. They control the first day, right? So they will. They'll have enough votes to install all their committee chairmen. It'll be like there's one Republican in the whole Senate. It's 50 minus the vice president is the same as one.
Okay, so because of Harris casting the tie-breaking vote, in essence, is that she can cast a tie-breaking vote for Schumer, and then everything goes the Democrats' way. So then they become in full control. So it'll be an interesting thing because this is that one big thing to me that we were holding. It was kind of our firewall against a very left-wing, aggressive Biden agenda out there potential. I mean, Bernie Sanders had been pushing. There's a lot of climate stuff. I mean, look at Biden's climate, his cabinet. He's got climate people all over the place, and he wants to spend a bundle of money on climate. In the House is, things seem to be set up that there's going to be a lot of money spent on climate change or, all these kinds of things. And it's a lot more likely to happen if the Democrats wind up in control of that. This is where the Republicans could have stood forth and pushed back on a lot of the Biden agenda. But if they're controlling all levers of government, this is going to be a very interesting 2 or 4 years, depending on how you want to look at it for Biden, Harris, or whatever.
Right. The only real restraint on them is 2022. and trying to not be so wackadoodle that they lose one of their houses of Congress and can't keep pushing stuff through. The other thing is, Republicans have to decide who they're going to be, right? Because if they're, are they the Trump party? Are they the, Marco Rubio, John Kasich Republicans? You got to figure out which one will win in 2022, and you better figure it out quickly. If you're asking me, like, which way would I go with that? But, the 2 billion people are not downtown for Marco Rubio, right? They're downtown for Trump. So, I think that the political force, if the Republicans are smart, that, it's kind of counterintuitive since he lost re-election, but to stay being that kind of America First party and to characterize the votes that get taken as, are you for America or against America? And, preach that preserve our country message, which is really what, conservatism is. And so, there's, like, for instance, one of the things that's going to come up real early is there's a liquefied natural gas terminal. Okay. This is a big thing because, we had natural gas, and like oil, you can export relatively easily, right? Put it on a boat, take it somewhere else. But natural gas, which is, we have more natural gas than anyone else in the world has energy of any kind, right? It's an enormous resource for us. We can make a lot of money selling it abroad. We started to build these LNG terminals. There's one in Louisiana. There's one in Alabama or somewhere. And now they're trying to build one at the end of the Delaware River. So, ships approaching the port of Philadelphia could get it. Okay. Big boon for people who, work in the area where Joe Biden is from, or, is from politically, not where he was born. But, what will he do about that? Because if you have a natural gas terminal, you can sell it all over the world. You can promote a lot of jobs. Natural gas is not oil, right? It burns cleaner than oil and so forth. And, you have a chance of like really hurting the economy with one fell swoop. So it'll be interesting to see on stuff like that. Do those people get in charge and immediately start taking down projects like that where, that's a big export opportunity for the U.S.
Yeah, though the clean energy types, they don't really talk too much about, natural gas. They want to focus in on, the wind and solar and all these other things. That's their big thing. And those things are, those are expensive projects to put together.
And they're non-environmentally friendly, and they're not efficient, and they don't really work as, I think, on that one, you might get an interesting amount of resistance from California, because California, they've had some serious power outages caused by trying to, comply with green initiatives dictated by the state government.
Yeah, my wife and I were talking about the solar energy thing because, I've said many times I've had solar panels on my house for a number of years now, and I was probably one of the first 2 or 3 people, I guess, in our neighborhood to put them on. And I walk around, you've kind of seen the neighborhood in general, at least from one angle. I've walked around the neighborhood, and I'm trying to think, as big a boon theoretically, supposedly, that solar power is, very few of the houses in my neighborhood have actually gone that way. I mean, not every house is ideal for it, because you got to have enough sun in order to make this whole thing worthwhile. But I was really surprised at how few homes in my neighborhood have gone into that, because for me, I just did it for economic reasons. Economically, it made sense for me to do that because Solar City at the time, which is now Tesla Solar or whatever, Sparrowhawk, so whatever the name they're using for the operation exactly, they made it attractive enough for me to do that and still save me money, over my electricity costs, because Pepco has got to basically take that power and use it. They have to basically credit me for that every time I get a bill.
Right. So in other words, you sell your excess power to the power company, which is
yeah. There's never been, right? Yeah, there's never really been, I was always hoping I'd get so much sun, I'd go negative, like I've seen on that. But Pepco and these utilities they're smart. I mean, technically, I think on the power consumption, there are times where you can say there's possibilities where you could generate enough solar energy to offset the majority, if not your entire electric power bill, the generation bill. Mm-hmm. But if you've ever looked at an electric bill or any kind of bill from a utility, there's like item after item after item of other things. And if I didn't really use much on Pepco, I'm still paying like a monthly account maintenance fee and all kinds of other fees. And then there's the county tax. There's all kinds of taxes. So it's like you're kind of paying up the wazoo. There's always something. You're never going to be able to avoid it when you're on that grid for them. But yeah, but I was thinking too that I was seeing a lot of advertisements for nuclear energy, which is extremely clean, but it's still not very popular with the
lefties. Don't want that, right? Because it doesn't go to their solution, right?
Right.
It's still like something we can find and do, So it's like, what are you for? How do my question is like, how do you see this panning out? I mean, like you're talking about sun panels, solar panels, of all the metro areas that have weather stations, National Weather Service stations in the country, the only one that gets more cloudy readings is State College, Pennsylvania. Other than that, Washington is the cloudiest place in America. Did you know that? Right.
So I believe it because, every once in a while I think about it's like, I'm not going to generate much solar. I mean, you'll generate some because clouds doesn't mean no sun. It just means it's obstructing it. But that's also, if it doesn't hit the solar panels, you're not, you generate very little, in energy during that day. So yeah, we get a lot of cloudy days. There is I am not.
I mean, I don't remember the last time that was a sunny day around here. It's been weeks, literally weeks since we've had a sunny day. I remember people talking about the stars aligning at Christmas. I'm like, who cares? We're not going to see it, right?
Yeah, right. That's one of the problems that you talk about all these events about you can see certain stars and all these kind of things, but we're so cloudy most of the time we can't see most of this stuff.
That's
so
right.
I don't even bother trying. It's like
I don't even want to read about it anymore because it's like, wow, cool. Wish I could be there,
So I want to ask you this though. So we have these runoffs, but they're neither. I mean, the Perdue term, he was up for re-election, so this is a six. If Ossoff wins, this is a 6-year term for him. But Loeffler was filling the remainder of Isaacson's term. Was that right?
Right.
So this is just until that point. So Warnock wins, but he's not getting 6 years, right?
Right. He's getting what was left of Isaacson's.
Right. And so, one of the things here is I wonder, in terms of who is Raphael Warnock going to be, because he doesn't have a full term and he is going to have to run for re-election sooner rather than later. Does he embrace that leftism? Is Georgia ready for this, this lefty tilt on the Senate side?
See, the big question here is like, how is Georgia a blue state, right? How did it go blue president, blue twice for the Senate? No one who watches politics in Georgia can believe this. Even the Democrats are like, look what we're doing. This is amazing. It's like, yeah, it is amazing. It's because it's probably not being done on the up and up.
Though I will say, look, I don't think that Kelly Loeffler was necessarily the best candidate.
A terrific candidate. I gotcha.
Yeah, right. I mean, Brian. Governor Kemp put a person in that he wanted, a friend, a donor, that kind of
big donor. That's right.
Yeah, but
that was a big mistake because the alternative was Doug Collins,
right?
Who would have been very pro-Trump, very active, who's very effective on Capitol Hill, well known. Not a shrinking violet. Wouldn't have had the insider trading problems that she had. Wouldn't have had, the basketball team she owns turning against her. There was some like ugly things that like candidates usually don't have to deal with that had to, that happened to Kelly Loeffler that wouldn't have happened to Collins. That was a decision made. And if you look back on it, all the things that happened since, probably the dumbest thing Trump ever did was campaign for Brian Kemp because Brian Kemp's done nothing but shib him ever since. You know,
Well,
that was a critically bad idea, and a mistake so big. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe this is what he intended. But this is the most consequential political mistake of the cycle, at least, right?
Yeah, and how much of an effect do you think that Stacey Abrams had, in these races in terms of trying to get voter turnout or anything like this? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that she will probably try to make another run at the governor's, right, at Kemp, right?
But I mean, I guess the ones today, you have to give her some credit because it looks like part of what's happened is record black turnout for these runoffs. So that's probably because of her. But in the general, I don't think that Biden won Georgia, so it's hard to say like why did Biden win Georgia, because he cheated is my answer. They cheated systematically and got caught, and no one cares. That's the thing about all this is whatever happens to Trump, we're saying crooked elections are okay. We're saying you can flood. We're not going to worry about chain of custody for ballots. We're not going to worry about people pulling suitcases of ballots from under tables. We're not going to worry about 4 a.m. dumps of ballots, and then this machine programmed to kick out the same result 8 times in a row or whatever, odds of which are more than 1 in 1 quadrillion. Right? We're just not. Hey, he got the most votes. You didn't stop him from cheating. Courts aren't going to listen to your case. No one cares about the evidence. Move on, and if we let that happen now, we'll be letting it happen from now on.
So, I wanted to ask you about this too, this whole dust up that we've had over the weekend with, with Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, and then Trump and this recorded phone call. I mean, it was an hour long and I didn't listen to the hour. Obviously the 4 minutes or so has been replayed over and over and over again by media outlets all over the place. What's your opinion about this phone call, at least that excerpt from this phone call?
Okay, I read the whole transcript, and if it takes an hour to listen to, but it takes about 8 minutes to read. Thank goodness for reading, right? But the fact of the business is there's absolutely nothing wrong with what Trump did. He called the guy. They have 2 lawsuits against Georgia. He's like, we could settle this and not go forward with these lawsuits if you can look at any of these things, and he ticked them all off in real granular, precise detail, exactly how many votes were at issue, exactly what the cause of the issue was, and so forth. Trump knew an extreme amount of this for, a supposedly detached executive who doesn't read anything, right? He knew the actual insides of cheating in Georgia and where it had occurred. And and he's like, well, we asked for Fulton County to be looked at, and you gave us Cobb County. It's like, Cobb's not Fulton. We needed Fulton, right? So you have all these things going on, and the Raffensperger's sitting there saying, well, we looked into that. Well, where's your proof? What did you do? Because Cleta Mitchell brought up the 4,500 dead voters, and the Raffensperger says, well, actually, we looked at that. And there was only 2. And she's like, well, we went through obits and we compared them to voter registration rolls and, laid out like the pretty involved process they went through to arrive at their figure. And, he obviously did not do anything to arrive at his figure, right? He just pulled one out of thin air. You can tell from the whole conversation, the Trump team has more details about this than the people who are telling them there was no corruption, right? The people who are telling them there was no corruption don't, right? The other thing is like, I've looked at this WSB, supposedly Raffensperger went on WSB Atlanta and, explained that whole tape about him pulling the ballots from under the suitcases and so forth. There's nothing valid to what he says, right? The people who watched that eviscerated that. It's just like, we're going to ignore truth. We're going to ignore, what happened here, and we're going to let a cheat happen.
So, with everything that's happened in Georgia, and once again, we don't know for sure exactly whether or not we're going to see a split race, which actually, compared from what we talked about a week ago, basically, I think we were in agreement that it was going to be 2-0 in either direction. So right. A split would be, would be right now would be great for us.
A really rare case of us being wrong.
Yeah. I'm like, who's keeping track? Somebody keeping
Get that in there,
I don't know who's keeping the scorecard, but there's been a lot said, a lot made of the just really the very public battles between Raffensperger and Kemp and President Trump. Especially during this runoff period and things like that. What is your opinion? What do you make of this? Is the Trump, all this fighting, was this detrimental? Did this contribute in any way, shape, or form to the Republicans not doing better, to Purdue and left them not doing better, in their election? What does this say for Georgia politics, Republican politics going forward? You mentioned, the mistake that you felt that Trump made by kind of, pushing for Kemp. So, what's your take on this in terms of what's happened here?
Well, I think we'll have to look at exit polling or, polling down the line to know like how much each thing hurt and so forth. I think that Republicans, you got to remember, it's almost 85% now of Republicans think the election was corrupt, right? That it produced a corrupt result. So why would it hurt Republican candidates to carry on that controversy during this campaign? It's like what Republicans, and it was a base election, right? It was who could turn out their base. The Republicans are fired up that this was unjustly done. And I don't see how you lose support for Republicans by fighting for what Republicans are saying we should be fighting for.
Though I think what's happening here is that, it's just that we have a lot of Republicans who are just saying, it's time to go forward. The election was on November 3rd. We're now 2 months past that. How much more of this does it do? And is it going to hurt the Republican brand, whatever that brand is, going forward? Because I really don't know what the Republican brand is going forward, because Trump cast a very long shadow over the Republican Party. This demonstration, these things that are going on here in D.C. today, and happened yesterday too, just show, the tremendous popularity of Donald Trump and his sway and influence. And it will become a huge question mark for 2022 and 2024, and leaves a lot of establishment Republicans still trying to figure out, exactly, where is their place and where is the Republicans' place, and exactly how they should, what should they be campaigning on, or how they should brand the party going forward.
Right. I think the thing is, you're going to be able, we were talking about earlier, you're going to be able to put most of this on a paradigm of, love America fighting against America, right? Like, for instance, green energy, every time a green proposal comes up, you say, these guys, they care more about impressing their friends in Davos and Paris than they do worried about American jobs and American consumers and so forth, right? The energy independence is a huge accomplishment of the Trump administration. We have the gas prices we have now are similar to what we had in like the early 80s, right? So, we basically kept the price of a pretty volatile thing, a thing that really used to snare our economy, a thing that was, $4-5 a gallon under Obama, right? We've got it down to $2 a gallon, and it's been pretty steady. And the reason that is we control our energy future now. The first thing these guys want to do is relinquish control of our energy future, go back to needing to buy it from abroad because we forced domestic production out of business, So I think Trump was rushing around with some success, getting all these leases let, right? These oil leases let. So you're in contracts and Biden can't stop it. It was like the Anwar in Alaska has been opened up and so forth. So, there's a lot of work to do there. Republicans need to figure out, and I would be pro-America, and I would beat the drum of pro-America, because it gives you an issue that, Democrats can't really take that issue, right? They can't really claim to be pro-America. It won't be believable, right? That's not what they campaign on. They got pointed out many times, for instance, their debates, there weren't even any flags on the stage at their debates. Then finally, about the 7th or 8th debate. They decided to stick one out there because of all the heat they had taken, So they can't argue that. But that resonates with Americans. We're not bad people, right? We think we are good people and we try to do good things. And I think that, that's a continuum that the Republicans could win a lot of political arguments on and ultimately some elections.
Yeah, one of the other things too is just about this potential change in power in the Senate if the Democrats wind up controlling this is something that is tax policy. You get Ron Wyden and these guys to go rewrite tax policy, and there's a lot of unfriendly things for businesses and for a lot of unfriendly things for individuals, on tax policy that they could push forward and get passed. Plus, not that the Republicans, because I've complained about this for the last 4 years anyways, not the Republicans paying a lot of attention to spending, but with the Democrats in control, we know for sure that keeping an eye on the national debt or anything like that is definitely not going to be their concern. What do you think? What about the odds for getting more stimulus payments to individuals? I think Democrats take control of the Senate. That should we probably will see a lot more of that coming down the pike too.
Right. I think that going back and that's what we were doing before Trump. We were arguing to save, right? To not spend, physical restraint, this and that and the other. There's a limit to how far that's going to carry people now. I mean, the attitude of everyone is, to vote ourselves to Treasury, and it's just, what sector of the polity controls, can direct the Treasury to its allies, right? That's basically the calculation now. We're all spenders, and I think doing this on the basis of fiscal certitude, you're going to get laughed out of court, right? You're not going to convince a lot of people that because Republicans didn't worry about it when they were in control. Trump didn't worry about it. He just made budget deals that pushed things down the road. I think we have ridden that horse about as far as we can ride it, and I don't see it moving votes anymore. I have conversations with people about this all the time about where did that go in the Republican Party and should we get it back? And, to me, no, it's like be for America. How much money, there's no mechanism, just as there's no mechanism to punish corrupt elections, there's no mechanism to punish the $27 trillion in debt. What are they going to do? They're going to foreclose on us? The holders of that paper, that dirty little secret is out. And, you can say, oh, we should. And yeah, I agree with that. We should, right, reduce spending and keep an eye on that and try to get back, closer to at least balancing the year in, year out spending, But I would also say to my conservative friends, this year is what we are saving for, right? The reason we counsel against wasteful spending is so when bad things happen, we're ready to chunk some money at it. And this was a year we had to chunk some money at it, As for the stimulus checks, I'd like to see polling on this, but I don't see the momentum for handing everybody a $2,000 check that everyone else seems to, right? I think a lot of people are like, where does that come from? And why can't we just open up and go to work and earn our own money, And, it was used as a kind of a blunt tool politically, but I don't blame Mitch McConnell for not doing that. I don't think that was some big, silver bullet that killed the candidates in Georgia. I just don't buy it.
Right. And on the stimulus, I think, the first time around, everybody, we were trying to figure things out and we were just trying to prime the pump. We were trying to get things back and doing all that. And so you saw very little pushback on that because they needed to get money into the economy. This time around, now that the economy has started to perk back up again and things like that, we have had a lot more pushback because, Mitch and, and is saying like, exactly what does this do? How does this really help us in the situation we're in? Because the economy has begun to recover. We're not where we were in March. So, but, what part of my other fear, going out is just that all, with the Democrats in control is that, I will not be surprised to see some kind of universal basic income ideas getting floated around, and at least in some areas actually being implemented, because the Democrats, the spigot is open and they love this. And this also ties the people into voting for Democrats forever. It's buying their vote.
That's right. And, universal basic income, I could live with that if you took off all the other stuff, right?
Right.
So if you say, okay, we're not going to do food stamps anymore, we're not going to do welfare anymore, we're not going to do any of this other stuff anymore, housing, all that stuff, we're just going to give you the money and let you be the responsible adult, right? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that most of the people who are receiving that money are receiving it because they were not responsible adults, right? For whatever reason, you made decisions that cost you a chance to earn enough money to not need that assistance, right? Yeah. You didn't go to college. You didn't finish college. You didn't study. You didn't do well in high school because, it wasn't fun. And so you couldn't get into college. And now, you voted for people who were interested in trade deals with China that took away your job that didn't require a college. And now, oh no, I don't have a job and I need, a loan for college and I need, a universal basic income, right? So you're going to hand people a big bunch of cash, right? That's the proposal, isn't it? It's like X amount a month, you just get a big check and you work out all your own problems. Okay. If that's the case, if that's what we're doing, those same people who made the decisions that put them on welfare now have a big stack of cash every month, right? If I was a dope dealer, I'd be calling all those people on the day the checks came out, right? Because you'll make a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, entitlement programs and all these kind of things. We have a lot of things out there that have been, we've had for decades, and a lot of people are able to take advantage of it that don't necessarily need these things, but but if they're there, they take advantage of it. Yeah. I don't blame them for doing it if it's there. This is the system that needs to be reformed. My wife just told me about some friends of ours. So their son, I think they've got 4 or 5 kids now, and the last one actually was born and wasn't expected to live. Has some, I don't know if it's quite encephalitis, but it's basically there's got the brain swelling kind of issues. Shouldn't have lived for more than a couple of weeks, and it has been months. This baby is a miracle. Now, the husband I think he's making close to a 6-figure salary working for a defense contractor in the Northeast. But because they have 4 or 5 kids and this thing, they actually qualify for Medicaid. And so Medicaid is going to help pay for a lot of this hospitalization stuff like that. I think he's probably got a pretty good health plan working for a defense contractor, but he's taking it because the government, basically he qualifies for it.
Yeah.
But those are things that at some point in time, he's like, we need to reform these kinds of things. I mean, I'm all for helping people, but Medicaid really wasn't meant to help people making, up to 6 figures or more with these medical expenses. There are other avenues of doing this, but these are things that I don't know. That's not a question I'm going to have dealing, and otherwise it'll go on forever today with stuff like that. Anyway, so I wanted to, in terms of, we had Pelosi had her, she got reelected as speaker. It was kind of narrow. She had what, 3 people who voted against her, and was it 2 abstentions or something like that?
Anyway, 4 or 5.
I thought the total of people who were out just didn't vote for her was 5 total or whatever, based on the makeup of how we've got, because we have 2 seats where we don't really know the end result with everything.
And Alcee Hastings didn't vote because he's in the hospital with cancer.
Is that right? Okay, so you have some of those things going on, but Pelosi has now made, the House rules for this next Congress have been adjusted to me, it looks like to try to definitely kind of seal her power for her narrow base, or that she's got. I mean, one thing was this kind of goofy thing about this non-gender specific language. You can't have mother, father, son, daughter. You've got to have parent and child and all these kinds of things. But I saw also one of the things that she has in there is that there's been going on for decades, I guess, is this, and you probably are a little more familiar with this, is this idea or this rule where where you've got a bill and you can actually recommit and you can
motion to recommit.
Yeah, you can.
I didn't see what I saw that she's done something with motion to recommit. So what motion to recommit is, you have a bill on the floor. When I was there, it happened with we had a bill on the floor that would have given an extra congressional seat to Utah, which was next in line at that time, and a voting member for DC, just one voting member in the House. Didn't make them a state, but it did give them a vote in the House. And it was the guy who was the head of the Space and Education Committee, Lamar Smith
from Texas.
Yeah, offered a motion to recommit it to add gun freedom for DC or whatever. It was a poison pill. Okay, so that means they go, the motion recommit, you either vote to send it back to the committee, or you vote to immediately make that amendment and re-vote on the bill, right? So if it goes back to committee, you probably lost, right? But if it goes, they can amend legislation on the floor, basically, with a motion to recommit. So, I don't know what her reform was, but I did see that she was trying to do something like
as
that.
I understand that the reform is that they can't do that. They actually have to send it back to the full House or something or other. I mean, in essence, it prevents.
Doesn't let you do it on the floor anymore. Amend on the floor anymore.
Yeah. So something that basically, I guess my understanding is that it makes it so that she won't face an embarrassing defeat.
Right. It's right, because it's a tool Republicans have used really effectively over the years when they've been in the minority. Democrats have not shown a lot of interest in it. You very few MTRs when Republicans control the House and Democrats are in the minority. But Republicans have used it a lot, and it forces uncomfortable debates, forces votes on things people don't want to be on record voting for. So, I see why she did that, and I knew that I had a feeling that stuff like that would be coming if she was returned as speaker. Yeah,
but probably for her last term, in terms of a speaker, in all likelihood.
That's the speculation.
That is the speculation. We shall see. I mean, if Republicans can retake the House, it definitely would be.
Right.
At least it would force out. So this will be her fourth term in office as a speaker. So that's anyway. I'm thinking as you were talking, that there's the other downside about this potential Democrat takeover, control of the Senate, is that it just will embolden Nancy Pelosi. It just makes just more Nancy. It's like that's the last thing I really want to see at this point. All right. So another thing too is that this is the big day. So at 1:00, Vice President Mike Pence will begin the process, right, of the certification of the votes from the Electoral College. There's been a lot of reports that President Trump has been like, Pence will come through for us, or language to something to that effect, and all of this thing. But I mean, the Vice President, he really isn't he just really there to kind of basically let the votes take place, and kind of as these certifications come up, and that he doesn't have power to really change anything, does he?
Well, the president's lawyers say he does. He can send votes back and say they weren't, the election didn't have sufficient integrity to be considered and so forth. He can make the states reconsider. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but there are lawyers out there, serious people, who say that Pence can make a difference. And I don't know what to happen. There's a lot of stuff on the internet this morning about various conspiracies that Trump may be now prepared to unveil and provide evidence for, and so forth. My calculation on that, if he has stuff, and it's supposedly the most persistent ones that I'm seeing have to do with Italy, something that went, and you remember there was a point where Barr and some other justice people went to Italy a couple of times and collected evidence, and we never knew what it was for. We may be about to find out. But supposedly people in Italy were able to control our vote totals, and they have the packets and they have everything that was sent back and forth. And that Obama was involved, Biden was involved. I am not, to be clear, I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm saying that's what people are saying that like the big reveal is going to be. And I'm not sure that's right. And we'll wait and see. But the task of this information, whatever it is, and it could be way better or way worse, is you have to move, by my calculation, about 15% of the American public into the school of thought that this election was corrupt and this result cannot stand. So you have maybe 24 hours to do that, right? Maybe only till 1 o'clock, maybe be down inside of 2 hours now, right? But if he has it, he can show it. And if it moves 15% of the people, then this could be stopped and reversed, and God only knows what could happen. But if you can't move 15%, then Biden's going to be president.
Well, I will say that I was surprised to see the number of Republicans from both the House and the Senate side that have publicly announced that they're going to object. So that'll slow the process down considerably today in terms of getting the certification done, because they're going to have to talk about this. So, and apparently, I guess the last time we really had this was 2005. And so I don't think that this is really going to change anything in terms of the vote, in the end. But it will be. It does give us another look. We've talked about this before. I mean, in terms of we're seeing things we've never really seen before. We've definitely never seen this many people object to a vote like this.
Right.
So
it also tells you, we were talking about earlier, the future of the Republican Party. There's 120 people in the House, and 10, 12 U.S. senators are saying the future of the party is the Trump brand.
Right. Yeah, right. And that's the thing. I think the count is up to 140 or so or more in the House. Yeah. So this is what is really interesting about this is just that that's what they're basically saying. These people are saying we're still allied with Trump. We are, we believe in the Trump principles and what he brought here, and so we're willing to go out here and say, yeah, we object to this type of a thing. This is, in that sense, I know the media and a lot of liberals are very upset. They're throwing a lot of brickbats at this, and these people are seditious or crazy or whatever, and everything like this. But I think when you look at it from a purely political standpoint, they're basically making a political statement too, to say, we're planting our flag in the ground, saying we believe that the Trump doctrine and whatever that's the party, and they're planting this very early on here. So it's this also,
when Trump starts taking the measure of who are his friends, we want to be on that list, right? I mean, they're saying, I'm making a public declaration that I am Trump's ally, right? Where others are saying I'm a Republican, which is different. It's not the same, right?
Do you think that this also plays into a little bit of that should Trump run in 2024? That these people are on the record of saying we backed you.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's what and this is a bet on what happens in 2024, right?
Yeah.
Because if you end up with Marco Rubio, this vote will have hurt you, right? This will be held against you because you won't have the liberal wing of the party. You will be identified with the other wing. So it's a calculation, and it's a risk. It's risky as all get out. So you have to believe there's at least some conviction behind it, or these people spend all this money and time and wear and tear on their selves and their bodies and their families to win these jobs, are laying them all on the line for Trump.
Yeah, I didn't look at the entire list. I mean, but not everybody who goes into this thing is usually in a safe seat or completely safe seat anymore.
Right.
And we do have redistricting coming up for 2022, which will be interesting to see how that all plays out, because I think on paper it probably should favor the Republicans, but you never can quite tell on that, because you still have remnants of the Voting Rights Act, and you've got a lot of other things where the Democrats are going to be pushing back on things. Virginia, I guess you have a redistricting commission, right?
Right. And but they submit it, and it's the final approval in Virginia. The way it works is the congressional delegation sits down in a room, all the members, both parties, and they divide it up to help each other. And that's what the commission is basically in charge with figuring out, is like, how do you make these wishes come true?
Oh, and also I wanted to ask you too. Just any thoughts about that race in Virginia yesterday? They have to run that she has to run again in the fall, I guess, right?
Right.
Does that just give her a little bit of more of an advantage in terms of that?
I mean, the state leds, as name recognition is the number one thing. It doesn't even matter like really what you did most of the time, So yeah, it's a big advantage.
All right. So now we talked earlier about all these people that are in DC. People have come in from all parts of the country for this thing. Yeah. And there's going to be a rally. What time is it? About by noon or there?
Yeah, I think it's starting now. I think it started. He was supposed to speak at 11.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine. This is unbelievable to me to think about here. We have what is probably the outgoing president here coming up 2 weeks before the inauguration, and he's out there with a rally for the troops talking about all these things, and he's got a lot of people out there. It's unbelievable about the power of President Trump.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable political moment. It really is.
But does that move the needle? I mean, it for all intents and purposes, it's not going to. It doesn't have any effect on what's going to happen on the Hill because there are procedures in terms of certifying the vote, et cetera. But once again, this also seems to have an effect, potentially for 2024. If this guy who theoretically, if he lost the election in November, like it looks like, that still 2 months later, he's drawing huge crowds out again
into a hostile area. He's not drawing them to, South Carolina. He's drawing them to Washington D.C. So yeah, he remains a political force. What will come of this, we don't really know, but it does tell the Democrats that you have a lot of people who are very committed to the other way, and so you have to plan accordingly because they will be back, and you're going to get to a point where they are, they're in cheat-proof situations.
So okay, so your friend Bob Polly, should be interesting to watch today's events unfold. The guy who would have been here had it not been for COVID, right?
Right, that's right.
As he said last week. What you just touched on here a little bit too is that, does Mitch McConnell or like a Tom Cotton and these people who are saying that they don't agree with this protest in terms of trying to protest the certification of the votes and everything like this, do they deserve the criticism that is being heaped upon them by conservatives? I mean, Tom Cotton has been, a lot of conservatives have generally loved him, but now it seems that as soon as you stand up, they don't like him as much. And Mitch McConnell has always been on both sides, kind of Mitch
McConnell's Mitch McConnell.
Right.
He's going to survive. You can build your tent around Mitch McConnell because Mitch McConnell's going to be there. As for Cotton, I think he's punting away a pretty serious chance here because he's not ever going to be their darling. And this is a tattoo. You're not getting this one off, right? People will remember who was on which side of this forever. So, he will not be able to come before the voters in 4 years and say, I am the heir to, make America great again, keep America great. He won't be able to. He has to find a different lane now. And I've heard people say there will be 20 candidates next time. I think if Trump gets in, there won't be. It'll be the 2 or 3 best financed against him, and that's it. Because the money won't be there for anybody who's not pretty serious. And I think at this point, Cotton would not be included in that group, right? I think that if you've totally pissed off the Trump people and you totally said you're not going to, you didn't support them in their hour of need, then I don't think you can go back to them and ask them for their votes later.
Right. And I think that, if Trump is not in the race in 2024, then it looks like 2016 or 2012, a lot of people will jump in. If Trump goes and gets into the race in 2024, I think you're right, is that there are only going to be a handful of people that would even dare to mount the challenge because of the money and all the support he's going to come in with. Right. Yeah.
And no surrogate will do. The people I read the other day, Ivanka, this does not accrue to Ivanka. It doesn't accrue to Don Jr. I mean, I guess you could try with Pompeo, but I mean, the heir to Trump is Trump, right? He's going to have to do it himself.
Though I'm not sure about the memory of what people have done now versus 4 years ago, if Trump is not in the race. Okay, if Trump is not in the race, I don't know how big of an issue it is, unless a guy like Ted Cruz or something like that
takes that Trump lane,
yeah.
right?
Right. They can do that. But that's what to me, that's what I think it would require for the memory to be, because I keep thinking about times in politics where like, oh, people are going to, they're going to love, George, Bush on Iraq war and everything like this. When he was running, you remember, I think it was that year, he was like 80-90% approval, and we were doing great. But boy, by November, it didn't work out.
A disaster.
Yeah, because it's like, what have you done for me lately? And all the other messages that have been, not what happened 9 months ago, and everything in the feel good of that. So but politics continues.
Yeah, I remember when I first went to Capitol Hill, it was 2006. So it was like September 2006. So it was 2 months before the midterms, right? And this was Bush's second term, and we would go to these meetings every day. They're for Hill communicators, and they would say, get out releases on the Iraq War, the economy. I can't remember what the third one was, but it was three issues that Bush was terrible on. He was the Iraq War was an albatross to him. This is W now, by 2006. His hard positives in our district in Northern Virginia were about 4 or 5%. That's pretty low for a sitting president of your party, And so they were, the Republican response in 2006 was to campaign on the things voters hated about us. And so, it's not surprising how that went.
Yeah, and when you look at 2020 and I'll say even 2021 with the Senate runoff races, is that it wasn't Trump didn't lose the election on policy. I mean, I think his policies did a lot of good for America overall. It was a personality thing. It was we go back to saying Biden hit away and he wasn't Trump, right? And they can pound away at that. I don't think that the Ossoff Warnock messages were all that strong either. It's just any ties to Trump or beating back against ties to Trump,
yeah.
kind of separated them a little bit. But I don't see any of these guys, these people who are winning the races, as being particularly great candidates per se. They just used Donald Trump with a disaffected voter base and said, "Hey, this is it. It's all about Trump and the personality of Trump."
All right. So what could lift Trump back above the waterline is 4 years of Biden, right? You say, okay, you chose the alternative. Look at what you got. Gas is $5 a gallon again. Taxes have gone up. Government responsiveness has gone down. We're not energy independent anymore. We have all these ridiculous, woke mandates. Are any of these things done for America? No, they're not. They're done for various woke constituency groups. That could be what brings Trump back, is 4 years of looking at the alternative to Trump.
Right. I mean, that could be very interesting. So your friend Bob has chimed in here on you. Agree on Donald Trump himself, or forget it for the Trump family in 2024. Any of the other family members would be pushed aside, and justifiably so.
Yeah.
So I think
none of them have earned a spot to be a presidential candidate. Don Jr.'s been with him, been pretty effective, stump speaker and so forth. But nothing about him says serious presidential candidate to me.
Yeah, there's no Trump family dynasty in politics at this point, right?
I wouldn't say so.
It's all about Trump, the man himself. I mean, it's Donald Trump.
He's the one with the talent,
right? Yeah. But it's Trump for better or for worse in terms of whether or not you like the personality and the things that he's done, and things, and if he'll have, I think you're right in terms of, we have 4 years of a Biden-Harris administration that might give a lot of path for Trump to return to power in 2024, run again, and that may even be enough to convince some of these never Trumpers or anti-Trumpers to maybe come back around after, I mean, because they did a lot of damage. I think they did a heck of a lot of damage this time around, and they're going to reap what they sow here with Biden Harris, and it won't be pretty.
It won't be pretty. And, so people who think that they pulled something off here are about to find out, that they did not.
Yeah, I mean, there is this buyer's remorse kind of a deal with them. That they'll
be careful what you wish for.
That's right. All right, I want to spend some last remaining time here on the virus, the vaccination, basically. I guess I put virus distribution. I just meant to say vaccination distribution.
Virus distribution, quite effective.
I knew there was something wrong when I looked at it.
Distributing the heck out of that thing, man.
Anyway, so we've had almost 5 million people, I think, been vaccinated based on some figures that I've seen. There have been something like, I think, 17 million doses have been distributed. So we have, we've only had about a third or so going there. Now, there's a lot of complaints about the rollout and things like that in terms of how it's going. But the states have to determine, they've set kind of a phase of phase 1, 2, 3 in terms of who gets it by your job, whether or not you're a first responder, and critical. There's another group of people that are a little bit further down that are 16 to 64 that have got, comorbidities. People, someone like me and probably like you, would probably fall to the bottom. And you said you already had the flu vaccine, so you figure you're going to fall to the lower, that phase 3 kind of a thing like that at this point in time. But what we've seen in the beginning is that some things were not really thought out about. There was I think it was a Safeway store in Petworth in DC, and they had 30 doses, and they got to 28 of the people that they had to go for, and they were coming up on closing, and they had 2 doses left, and they had to throw them out because they do expire. There's a limited shelf life, and they couldn't just give it to anybody. So DC came in and said, okay, we're going to have to loosen this up a little bit,
right?
To say, you're going to. And so there was a story the other day where a couple of guys were in Giant Food in DC, and it was they were like 10 minutes away from closing the pharmacy, and the pharmacist was like, "Hey, you want a dose of this?" And these guys said, "Yeah, sure." So they were able to get the vaccination, and the vaccines weren't thrown away. So there are some snags along the way where they need to think this out, but I don't know really what the solution is, but say, hey, I guess there's some waiting lists that are going on.
The solution is market forces, is do not have states saying who can get it. Do not have states, some of these states they're coming out saying you have to be a, licensed, registered, or practical nurse to give it. It's like, if it's as safe as the flu shot, then whoever gives the flu shot should be able to give this shot, right? That's what they're claiming, right? So what do you tell people when you say, oh, well, this shot, it's just as safe as the others, but this one, you need a special person to give the shot, right? And that let everyone give the shot. Let everybody who gives other shots should be qualified to give this shot. Let providers make their priorities, let people go where those priorities are the ones that match up with them. And all the people who really want it and demand it and need it now can go get it. Because most people, they would like to get it, but I think there's a big bulk of America out there who's willing to, watch it percolate for a few months and see what happens, right? And then they will make their way to the front of the line. I don't think government stepping in and saying this is the formula of who should get, because you're already the things you talked about. You're building in unfairness to this. It's, frontline workers and 2 randos and Giant who happened to be there when the lady was running out of time, right? So, instead of all that, just let people seek it as they will. I think you'll get a better result.
So what about, I didn't read the whole entire story, but I just saw, news reports, headline reports about Florida. They had 1,000 cars, people waiting in line in the cars to get the vaccine. And then
one of the counties, attempted to set up this stringent thing, right? And so, and that was the thing. I don't know if you saw the clip with him and the DeSantis, the governor, and
the CNN,
and and she's like, well, where's the state plan? Why aren't these people? And he's like, the worst thing we can do is make a state plan, right? Lee County needs to work out its problem. right? Me telling Lee County that it has to do what Miami does and, Escambia and St. John, it makes no sense, right? So, I think that kind of illustrates, what we're talking about, like how it should be distributed.
Right. All right. We're down to 2 minutes.
So we will go Monday night. We are going to play for the National College Football Championship. You have a team that's Ohio State's played 6 games, but they're unbeaten. Alabama's unbeaten, has played in the, really rugged SEC. There are some reports that there are some problems in the Ohio State camp with COVID. Most of the SEC has passed this because their players got it much earlier. And, they were one of the first conferences that went back to working. And so they were all together. And, like the LSU coach said at the end of the season, we're not worried about it because we've already had it. Everybody on our team just about has had it. So, but right now, because it would be a huge financial loss, and here's something to watch. Ohio State is saying, "Hey, we're playing. We didn't say anything about COVID issues. That's other people talking, and we will be there on Monday night."
Yeah, but the other interesting thing, I know you're probably watching it closer, is just what is the physical condition of Justin Fields?
Yeah, that's right. We don't really know. I mean, they're everybody you talk to about that tells you something different. So. I mean,
he took a nasty hit in that game, and you got to be in pain after taking a full on hit like that.
Yeah.
I mean, even waiting 7-8 days, you're not going to fully heal from that.
Right. He has a little more time. So would they play New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and then it's on the 11th?
Yeah. So I got 10 days roughly. Yeah.
You got to be able to, football, you got to be able to shake it off, whatever it is, in 10 days.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like say he plays and he gets hit again.
Yeah, that's right.
That's going to be very painful. But so are you going to pick Alabama?
No, I'm not going to pick anything. I think it's toss-up. I watched Ohio State. They have speed at every position. It may be an advantage to have only played 7 games. You have less. People hurting, but Alabama has some great athletes too. But they didn't look. Ohio State looked better in its semifinal than Alabama did. It doesn't mean Alabama won't win, but it does mean that it's not an easy pick.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Ohio State looked better than any of those teams
by far.
Oh yeah, by a wide margin. I mean, the way they thumped Clemson shocked the heck out of me.
Yeah.
So a reasonably healthy Fields, it'll be quite a game because they both got a lot of talent, a lot of speed.
Tune in.
Yeah, tune in. This is one to sit back and watch and enjoy.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your support. Please continue to always be safe and be well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you again next week.